Former Celtic Chris Herren spoke at Nokomis Regional High School with an important message. He detailed his journey from addiction to sobriety to event attendees while relating his story with present-day themes of gateway drugs, prescription drug use, vaping, and prevention responsibility. Event organizers were grateful he visited Newport in a school assembly and evening session.
This was a way we could capture that attention of the children. And today the event at the school was incredible. He touched many children. Lots of children after the event wanted to talk to him. So I think it was very impactful.
This can happen to anyone, and it doesn't discriminate from rich or poor, basketball player or farmer. Addiction can strike quick, and it can be very powerful.
Herren has been alcohol and drug-free since August 1st, 2008, has been sharing his message since 2012.